Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see everybody here. We have a nice turnout. If you don't know who I am, which I think many of you all do know, I am Bruce Rosenblatt. I am the owner of Senior Housing Solutions. I am called the matchmaker of senior housing. And so this is what I do is I help people navigate through some uncharted waters of senior housing. And so I've been doing this for quite a while. I just figured out it's been about 33 years that I've been involved in senior housing, and I formed my company about 16 years ago. And in addition to helping people find senior housing, I try very hard to be a resource for people. And so I sort of have a toolbox of people that I can draw upon. And one of those is my friend Ed Wollman. Ed and I have known each other for probably about 30 years. You know, when I first started out, we've known each other for a long time, and Ed and his wife, we know each other socially. And, so Ed is a very well-respected attorney in this area. He's great at what he does. He's also probably one of the best dressed attorneys in this area. So it's my pleasure to have Ed, and appreciate your time, Ed. So I'm going to let you take it from here. And I know you have some things you want to share with everyone, and then we'll open it up for some questions later.
Excellent. And we won't be long. So everybody enjoy the presentation. If you have any questions, there's a question area, comment area on Zoom. You can put it there and it'll pop up for us. Or in the alternative, we'll have questions and answers at the end. And I may stop in the middle and ask once or twice, does anybody have any questions? In the meantime, do me a huge favor, everybody that's watching, please put your mic on mute, because Zoom is incredible and it picks up all kinds of paper rustling and things like that. I hope you have pencils and papers in front of you, because this is going to be done in sort of a lecture type approach. So I'm going to cover a lot of ground, and therefore it's good if you've got a pencil and paper in front of you. And then if anybody has any questions afterwards, feel free to email them to Bruce or to myself. If you want to check out the website, it's probate spelled out -Florida.com, or you can call the office and ask for information regarding the office, and that's 239-435-1533. And this is going to be going out to a lot of people. So many of them are already clients of ours, and many of them are people that we have not met before. So nice to meet you for the first time on Zoom. Today, we're talking about getting your ducks in a row. I gave this presentation at the Collier Library many years ago, and I've given similar presentations with Bruce over the years as well at various organizations that need speakers, or trust companies that want to have us come in and provide our expertise. And we have an affiliate of friends that are in the business of helping you go through transition, downsizing, if you have to sell things or pare down, get organized. We have somebody in that area, Marla. We have people in the care business, care management business. And Bruce is my go-to person when I want to help our clients determine where are they going to live if they can no longer live at home, or should they stay at home with home health care for a while and then transition. But Bruce didn't get a chance to say his favorite line today. So Bruce, can you speak? Are you on speaker mode? You can tell them what your favorite line is.
So my favorite line, which is actually on the back of my car, and that it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. And and so there's too many times where I get calls for people who are in a crisis mode, who haven't planned ahead, and and it's very difficult to find the appropriate type of senior housing when people are in a crisis mode. And so some of the good communities do have medical criteria that you're going to have to pass, and a lot of people don't realize that there's going to be a hurdle out there with the medical acceptance. So again, it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. And I know, Ed, you and I agree with that philosophy.
So yeah, planning early is really difficult. Just an example of that is as you have to downsize, obviously many of you come from very large homes up north, and you know what it was like to downsize to a nice size home down here or a condo down here, and that was difficult enough. Imagine having to do it in a pinch. So yeah, planning ahead is clearly essential. Plan early and plan often. So getting your ducks in a row. So a lot of my clients, or many of my clients, have wonderful documents, but they haven't implemented the plan. So you can have beautiful estate planning documents, but if the brokerage accounts and the real estate and the annuities and life insurance and everything else, IRAs, do not align, do not match up to the nice words that are on a piece of paper called an estate plan, then you don't have your ducks in a row. Let me give you an example of a live case that we're dealing with right now. The client wanted to specify each and every asset, which I warn against. I don't like doing that. Your trust should say who you want to receive your assets, but not specifically earmark every asset, that my TD Ameritrade account goes here, my FineMark account goes here, my Schwab account goes there. Because what happens when you get ill, if you sell one of those accounts, sell off the assets and move it into your bank account so you have money to pay for your care. Could everybody go on mute, please? Thank you very much. If you sell.
Oh, sorry, Ed, hold on, Ed, 1 second. Sorry, Ed, I put you on mute, so you gotta. Ed, I put you on mute, so sorry about that.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Zoom is wonderful. It has all kinds of wonderful life experiences, and that's why it's called Zoom. So what I was saying is, if your estate planning document specifies that this account goes to this individual, so I have a Schwab account and it goes to Mary Smith, and then you sell the Schwab account so you have money in your bank account to pay for your long-term care, Mary Schmidt might end up being disinherited accidentally. So it's essential that you know what your documents say and that your title to your assets align with your wishes. So even if you've avoided probate and you've done a great job on the words inside your estate planning documents, the assets have to line up. I'll give you another example. You move from Schwab to Fidelity, and the new officer, financial advisor at Fidelity, says to you, Mr. Smith, who would you like to be the beneficiary on your brokerage account? And of course, Mr. Smith says Mrs. Smith, completely obliterating their beautiful estate plan, which provides for everybody. You good, Bruce? As a result, instead, you say, I want a certain number of shares to go to this person, a certain number of shares to go to that person, and everything gets funneled into one big box. And that's your revocable trust. Once it's funneled in that, your advisors plus your trustee will pay your expenses of your last illness, etc. And then after everything's settled, what's left over will be divided among the people that you love and care about and the charities that you've listed. So it's really important in getting your ducks in a row that you not only know what your documents say, but you also know whether you have any beneficiary designations. Another one of the accounts that I'm working on right now has a similar problem. In the year that the gentleman was passing away, he had a beautiful estate plan that gave a certain number of dollars for this family member, a certain number of dollars for this family member, and then the residue went to charity. But at the end of his life, he decided to change that, and he added a TOD on his brokerage account. What is a TOD? Transfer on death. Avoid lawyers, avoid probate. The money goes quickly to the beneficiary. Unfortunately, it wasn't the charity, so the charity loses out. So each one of these mistakes is simply done not out of ignorance, but out of thinking you're doing the right thing, and it just doesn't match up with your estate planning documents.
Ed, can I ask a question at this stage?
Sure.
So this transfer on death clause, and I had somebody ask me that, like, is there a TOD on a checking account? And, and sometimes we just don't even think about that. We open a checking account and it just seems like a really basic thing of opening a checking account. So would you advise to have a TOD on a checking account?
When you start peeling back the onion and you ask questions like that, it becomes more granular. So bank accounts have a POD, P as in Peter. POD is pay on death. Brokerage accounts have TOD, transfer on death. They're great ways to avoid attorneys, but the results are horrible because then the assets don't end up going into your trust. And as a result, if it's not done with great intention, then it could be a mistake. So the bank account usually is kept in your individual name, and frequently you'll add one child who is the one that's helping you out paying your bills. And I call that the bill pay account. So one of the things we're really getting at here is mapping out your game plan. You should have a 7-page financial Bible. I call it the yellow brick road, where you tell everybody everything you know about your situation. Who's your advisors, where your money's located, the contact people where your money's located, telephone numbers, emails. If you have any digital assets, you want to leave the passwords. You leave them a list of the passwords if you so choose. If you don't choose, then it's going to be pretty hard to find out what you had in those accounts. And just list some things. What if you are really conservative and you don't want them to invest in a company like a Philip Morris that's involved in tobacco, which nowadays they're diversified. But if you didn't want that, you can also list that in a letter of intent. That doesn't mean they have to follow it directly, but it means that you have provided some instructions. You can do a letter of intent regarding distributions. You can do a letter of directions regarding your aftercare. Such as your funeral arrangements. You can do pre-need, which means you're helping your family not go through a stressful situation and have to handle your cremation or burial or any kind of an event they're going to have, whether it's going to be a memorial, or some people like to have gatherings that are more upbeat, like a lot of our clients say, I don't want a memorial, I want a party. But you should provide for all that in advance so that it's one more thing you can check the box. So a lot of things I'm talking about today and getting your ducks in a row is checking the box. So there are basically 6 estate planning core documents. And those 6 documents, there's 3 medical and 3 financial. The 3 medical are the HIPAA release, so the doctors are able to talk to your next of kin or the people you've named in your documents. A living will that says, I do not want to be kept alive by heroic means. If there's no reasonable probability that I'll survive, please let me die peacefully. I don't need food and water provided through a tube. If it's only going to prolong the dying process, I want to pass away peacefully. Just give me morphine or whatever pain relieving medicine is necessary so I can pass without a great deal of pain. And then the healthcare surrogate, you're naming somebody to step into your shoes to make medical decisions for you. I know you probably off the top of your head know who you picked as number 1, but you should have 3 backups. If you're married, it'd be spouse first, then a child that emotionally can handle it, and then maybe another child or close family friend. And on the financial side, there is the power of attorney called the durable power of attorney, which means when you're incapacitated, it doesn't stop like a regular power of attorney. It's durable. It lasts throughout your incapacitation so that your family member can run around and do what's necessary to create an efficient administration by funding your trust, etc. The trust is the main dispositive document, and the will, you don't really need a will, because a will means you have probate. So the will says, I leave everything to my trust. The will is called a pour over will, because it's pouring everything you forgot to put in your trust from your estate in that box. It's putting it into the box using the pour over will to create the funding of the revocable trust, which we're going to get into in just a minute. So I'll stop and take a breath. 3 documents on medical, 3 documents in financial. On financial, you have to select somebody to carry out your wishes. Should it be a family member? Should it be a trust company? Should it be an attorney? The question is, who would best carry out your wishes? And it could be a combination. It could be a family member with your attorney, if that's what you deem appropriate, or it could be a corporation, because the trust companies will most likely do a phenomenally great job and make everything go smooth. So we can talk about that at a later time. What I want to talk about next is the things you should be thinking about when you're getting your ducks in a row, and that is the 7 buckets. First bucket is a financial plan. How many of you actually have a financial plan and know that you're not going to outlive your money? Financial plans sometimes are depressing because it says, oh, you're doing great as long as you don't outlive your money. But a financial plan is essential. An estate plan, obviously, says where everything goes and who can take care of you. Number 3 is a long-term care plan. That's where Bruce comes in. That's where long-term care insurance comes in, or self-funding. Or are you going to live up north with your children in that lovely basement or attic? Just kidding. Are you going to go live up north near your children and family members? Or are you going to find a beautiful place down here or have people come into the house? And how are you going to pay for it? Part of the financial plan. The next one is wealth preservation, also referred to as asset protection. Asset protection seems a little slippery when wet, so we call it wealth preservation. But how you title your assets greatly affects whether other people can take those assets away from you. So you want to title your assets correctly to avoid losing them if you have a car accident or something happens where you have a liability. You also want to make sure you have adequate umbrella insurance. Talk to your car people or your house insurance people about property and casualty insurance, excess liability called umbrella insurance, like the Red Traveler umbrella. It's on top of all your basic policies. So if you have a car accident and you're only insured for $300,000 per incident, up to 2 incidents in any given year, then you need that umbrella insurance to kick in so that you have at least $1 million of coverage, because the person you hurt is probably not going to go away for only $300,000, and the law firm is going to take a big chunk of that. So you want to make sure you have adequate umbrella insurance. And the other wealth preservation goes back to long-term care. One of the things that could cause depletion of your estate is healthcare. So you want to make sure you've not only organized your healthcare, but you figured out a way to pay for it. The next one of the 7 buckets is the life insurance evaluation. Many people bought life insurance when they needed it. They no longer need it. They often turn it in to the insurance company and lose a lot of money. There are other alternatives like life settlement, where somebody else will pay you for your policy, give you a lot more money than the insurance company would, and that's called life settlement. Please ask us if you have any questions. Your financial advisor should be aware of that. The next is cash flow analysis. Kind of goes back to the financial planning, but this has more to do with IRAs, annuities, pensions, Social Security, capital assets, capital gain assets. Where should you spend the money and where should you let the money grow? So getting your ducks in a row has to do with knowing where you should be pulling your money from. Obviously, if you have a required minimum distribution from your IRA, you have to take that first. You have to take your Social Security. You have to take your pension income, but you don't have to take extra assets out of your IRA. You don't have to spend your capital assets. You can let them continue to grow, etc. So cash flow analysis. And the seventh bucket is philanthropy. Many of you want to leave a legacy gift, a sustaining gift to your favorite charities, and we can help design that so you can get maximum benefits. I highly recommend that you start your charitable giving when you're living so you can enjoy the income tax deduction that you cannot enjoy after you pass away. So if your will says I leave $100,000 to my favorite charity, that's not going to provide your family with an income tax deduction. So it's better for you to start that while you're living and possibly set up a charitable vehicle that will pay you the income for the rest of your life. And then when you pass away, it will go to charity. That will get you an immediate income tax deduction. So that covers the 7 buckets. How are we doing on time?
Fine.
What I want to talk about next is in terms of getting your ducks in a row. We talked before about funding. Funding means actually picking up your assets and moving them and placing them into your trust. Often that isn't completely necessary, especially if you're married. Often when you're married, you hold your assets as tenants by the entireties, husband and wife holding it, tenants by the entireties. So it's very, very, very important that you talk to your advisor. Should you put the assets in your separate trust or trusts, or should you hold it as joint tenancy, tenants by the entirety with a spouse, or should you hold it in joint tenancy with your children? Never, but maybe some advisors would tell you to do that. So you want to look at how your assets are titled. You want to look at your liabilities and understand what your costs and expenses are. You want to look at your pension and other income and look at the cash flow analysis. You want to look at your budget, your fixed budget and your variable budget. And that's where Bruce also comes in. What can you afford? There's a wonderful array of opportunities that Bruce will introduce you to. Many of them, you have no cost to go in except a very small down payment. And then the rest of it is monthly as you so choose. Others have a very big buy-in and you may or may not get your money back at the end. That I'll leave that to Bruce. And then, as I said, the annuities and life insurance analysis. Next thing, in terms of getting your ducks in a row, is there anybody that you currently take care of on a monthly or yearly basis that you need to establish a separate bucket for because they have either special needs or additional needs or type of needs that you've been taking care of, like a parent, a niece or nephew, a close dear friend, and we can establish a side fund to take care of them. And you can decide whether to do it during your lifetime or at your passing. Next, I'm going to switch over to taxes. The estate tax exemption is extremely high right now. It's over $12.5 million per person. At the end of 2025, December 31st, 2025, it's getting cut in half. So basically the beginning of 2026, you have 1,030 days, give or take, to get your ducks in a row if you're going to have a taxable estate. So if you look at the current exemption, it's getting cut in half. Will you have a taxable estate? So if your estate's below 13 million, it will not be a problem as a couple. If your estate's under 6.5 million, you will not have a problem as an individual, but you still want to plan ahead and hopefully play and win the Powerball so that it is a legitimate problem of yours. And so on taxes, one of the mistakes people make is they don't realize that just because they don't have a state tax, they don't believe they have to do much tax planning. Well, that's not true. The biggest part of our practice is dealing with the step up in basis. When somebody passes away, you inherit money at a new date of death value. For example, you buy Coca-Cola for $10 and Coca-Cola goes up to $100 a share. You have a $90 gain. If you sell it, you have to pay capital gains taxes on $90. If you die, the people inherit at $100 and the capital gain disappears. So the question is, should you hold on to your low basis stock until you die? And the answer is, I don't know. Ask your financial advisor. It might be better to sell it, pay the tax, and diversify, especially if you have too much in one particular stock. But the step up in basis is so important because even if it's a couple of weeks before you pass away, we may be able to recommend that you move the assets into the decedent's name or move the assets out of the decedent's name for efficiency. So to get that step up in basis, you'd have to move them into the decedent's name. And there's a rule that you can't put them into the decedent's name and then receive the assets back within 1 year, because that would be beating the system. So you have to plan ahead. Again, going back to Bruce's saying, better to be 5 years early than 5 minutes too late. And the last subject I'm going to speak about, and then I'll pass the baton to questions and back to Bruce, is transition. I started my practice in Naples in 1989. My average client that comes to my office is 68 years old. I can't do the math, but that's over 30 years ago. So that person would be 98 years old today. It's actually 103 when you do the math. The next year when I was in practice, the average person that walked in my door is 68 years old. So they would be 97. And then the next group is 96, the next group is 95. So you can imagine I have a mature client base, and the new people that are coming in the door today are 68 years old. Still, that's the retirement. They come down here, they retire, they rent for a little while, and then they come and meet myself or somebody like me at about age 68, give or take. My point is, I see a lot of transition, and transition is never easy, and there's never a right time to talk about it, especially the children talking to the parents, because as you start to have any cognitive impairment, it's difficult to comprehend that you are having cognitive impairment. Yeah, I'm a little forgetful, and I'll be 62 this summer. I'm a little forgetful, but thankfully there's 6 attorneys here that do trust and estates. 5 of us are partners, so there's plenty. And the youngest one's 38 years old, and I'm the old one at 62, not too old. I'll be doing this till I'm 75, so you're stuck with me for quite a while. The long and short of it is, when's the right time for transition? I can tell you story after story where the person won't give up driving. They don't want to downsize. They won't accept the long-term care providers to come into their house. And if they do, they don't want them for 8 hours because it's too expensive. They only want them for 4 hours, 3 days a week. And when they need them for at least 8 hours, 7 days a week. So please surround yourself with people like myself and Bruce and other consultants like Anna Lee Kruger, because it's hugely important that you have a plan, that you plan ahead and you have possibly even a written plan. So on that note, I'll pass it back to Bruce for questions and answers.
Thanks, Ed. That's very comprehensive. I do have a couple of questions. Can you talk a little bit about DNRs, do not resuscitate, and advanced directives, and how important they are? And
sure, we don't issue DNRs. Do not resuscitate is issued by your doctor. It's like a prescription to medicine. It's usually on a colorful piece of paper put out by the state of Florida, and a lot of people will either put it on their refrigerator or put it someplace obvious. So if they do fall down and go boom and EMS comes to their house, they know not to resuscitate them if they're at that point in their life where they have an acute illness and the doctor believes that it's time to have a DNR. Together you can decide to have one. We write living wills. The living will says, I do not want to be kept alive by artificial machinery. That is not the same as a DNR. And what was your second part of the question, Bruce?
advanced directives.
So these are advanced directives. The living will is an advanced directive. You're giving directions in advance as to how you want things to be handled. Your healthcare surrogate is not supposed to do things that he or she would do. They're supposed to step in your shoes and be your surrogate and make medical decisions when you're no longer able to make medical decisions. The new healthcare surrogate goes into effect immediately when signed. So you don't have to wait to get a doctor's note to say you're incapacitated. Your family member that you select can act immediately as long as you can speak or as long as you can write. You can override who you select. But as long as you can speak or write, you can override them, but they have authority right away. So if you're in a car accident, we don't have to prove you're incapacitated. they can act right away and make a decision to operate.
Great. So my other question revolves around people who have pets. You know, and so if someone has, you know, dogs or cats or birds, what would be your advice to that person?
So we did a 3-part series that I could dig up if anybody wants it. We did a 3-part series of getting your ducks in a row for having to leave your home in an urgent situation. One of them was about pets. Another one was about medicine. And the other one was about financial tools like your financial documents, your passport, your estate planning documents. So it was 3 different articles. It was a 3-part series. As for pets, you should have an emergency pet plan in place, and you can build a pet trust if you're so inclined. If you have a pet that you believe should be taken care of, and you want to leave some money behind to take care of that pet. And we've done many of those over the years. And my favorite one was for Simba. We put a lot of money, this is a long time ago, we put $75,000 aside. And when Simba died, the daughter-in-law was able to get the money. So you can see the priority of importance. It's just kind of a joke, but that's exactly what happened.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you. And I'm going to open it up for questions so that people can use their chat down below on the screen, or I can unmute you if you like. So anyone?
Simple question, Bruce. Am I on the line?
Yes.
You are.
Where do you get a DNR to put on the refrigerator door or keep in your wallet, even if you have a living will? Where do you obtain this from?
Your primary physician.
Yeah, I have that, but I mean, where do you get it to put on the refrigerator? It's still from the primary physician?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But in Florida, and Ed was correct, you know, in Florida, for the DNR to be effective, it needs to be on yellow paper. It's some crazy rule that it needs to be printed on yellow paper. And so if it's on white paper and the EMTs come to your home, they're not gonna care if it's on white paper. But if it's on yellow paper, then that's more official. What else?
Hi, I haven't reached your average beginning age yet, but I'm getting there quickly. And as a small business owner, I wonder if you help people to make plans to turn over their business in the event of something.
I'll field that. I'll field that. Business succession planning is talked about greatly, rarely implemented. So it's nice to have a business plan in place, but I haven't seen too many people successfully implement it. So it's a wonderful idea, and it's called business succession planning. I wrote an article on the 10 steps for business succession planning, and I gave a presentation to an all-day seminar for financial planners. So if you shoot me a line, I'll be happy to send it to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
And I see, Denise, that you're on this call. And so Denise is also a move manager. And so she's also one of those people that we can tap into to help people downsize and to coordinate somebody's move. So she's a great resource as well. So hi, Denise.
I agree.
So, you know, Ed gave you his phone number and everything, but I didn't give you mine. And so if you need to reach me, my phone number is 239-595-0207. And my website is www.seniorhousingsolutions.net. So if you
Bruce,
ever, I got a question.
Bruce, can you repeat that? And also tell them that you do not charge unless.
So again, my phone number is 239-595-0207. My email is, or my website is seniorhousingsolutions.net. And you can call me, you can text me, you can send up smoke alarms. I'll be there. And so my sister who's on this call has a question for Ed. Question about DNR requirements in other states. How do you find out about them?
I'll answer that after you answer my question. How do you charge?
Oh, so my services to my clients are mostly free. And so I provide a free service to my clients, and then I get paid on the back end when somebody moves to a community. There are times where people have done a lot of research on their own, and they want to tap into all my knowledge about, the different places. And in that case, I do charge a consulting fee.
Excellent, thank you. As for DNRs in different states, as a lawyer that only practices in Florida, I try to keep my nose clean and not give advice on other states. But in terms of that, I would assume, and you know what they say about assuming, that it would be identical to Florida, because it's spoken about nationally on a regular basis, and it's easily Googleable, if that's such a term of art. But if I Googled Illinois DNR, I would get 100 pages of answers, and I'd probably get a Wikipedia that explained it.
So my question is, I also have the question about, wills that people, maybe they had a will done up in Michigan and now they moved here to Florida. Is it advisable to have that looked at from a Florida attorney?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Northern documents are usually valid, so you do not have to have them updated. The problem is they also aren't executed with the proper formality for Florida. So while they're valid, they might not be easily used in Florida. So we do something that we refer to as Floridization, where we take your Northern documents and we update them to meet the Florida requirements, which is a pretty straightforward process. While we're doing that, we also read your documents and usually find tiny little holes in your document that we can drive a Mack truck through. So we do a complimentary review of your documents to determine if they're up to speed, and therefore we will then tell you what you need to do to move forward.
And how often should somebody review their will?
Oh, probably about, as you mature, probably about every 3 years. And obviously, if you're much more mature, you might do it more frequently.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Denise?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it true that when you have a will or trust, that when you pass, you have to have the actual original will and or trust available to whoever?
Right. Yeah. There's a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is it's not necessary to have the originals. You can execute on a copy, but it's much more difficult, especially with respect to an original will, because you can't tell whether it's been tampered with or accidentally or on purpose destroyed or changed. So I highly recommend that we do what we do, which is we keep all the originals in a fireproof safe, and therefore we know if it's been changed. All we can say is we know we didn't change it. Maybe somebody else changed it. We know we didn't change it. We store all of them. So, and we keep them in an off-campus storage facility that is very well protected. And we also keep copies in the cloud in case anything happens, like a major hurricane in Naples.
Thank you.
Bruce, I have a question.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, if you go back to, you were talking about various accounts and not being specific about naming a specific person with a specific account. Where I got a little muddled up is I have accounts that are IRAs and accounts that are not. So some have a tax implication and others don't. So how to kind of divvy that up fairly becomes complicated. Could you comment on that?
Sure. More the reason why you don't want to have specific assets going to specific people, because you don't know how much you're going to have left when you die. So by having everything pointed in a funnel, and that funnel goes into the box, and the box is your revocable trust. We pay all your bills. What's left over that gets divided evenly, or however you want to get it divided. IRAs and annuities are slightly different. If they're small in size, then sometimes you don't want to go through it going through the trust. You want to go directly to the named beneficiaries. But if they're larger, I prefer that they go through the box, through the revocable trust, and come back out again. But that's something we talk about with each and every client. After we sign their documents, we give them funding instructions. But our new funding instructions, as of about 7 years ago, says we are not being engaged to do this. If you'd like us to do it, please engage us, because the clients never really tell us everything. They don't say, oh, I switched from Schwab to Fidelity and I added a TOD, which obliterates my estate plan. So it's important that you, with your particular estate planning advisor, go over each and every asset. It only takes a couple minutes. It's not that complicated. Give me a list of the assets, whose name it's in, and who is the beneficiary, and I can tell you whether you're doing the right thing or not.
So if I've just revised our documents, but now I, came here this winter with the intent of sorting out those, making sure, as you said, everything is titled appropriately to match, and I'm getting a little, befuddled with, how do I do this? Is that something I could do?
Yes, absolutely. We take that into consideration in our pricing model. Most everything is hourly, but we also take into consideration the fact that you just spent a boatload of money fixing up your documents or creating them for the first time. So we don't want you to have to go through the pain of doing it all over again. So we'll be kind. If it's us, you go to any estate planner you want. But if it's us, we'll be kind, and we'll try to tell you what we think you should do. And then we send you an engagement letter. If you choose not to go forward, then you have no obligation.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So, and Ed mentioned earlier about long-term care insurance, and, and I see this a lot in what I do, and that, people have this long-term care policy that they've been paying on for years, and they have no clue what it covers. And so I would highly recommend that you take it out of the drawer and dust it off and find out exactly what your benefits are at this time, because probably when you got the original policy, there wasn't a thing called assisted living. They may call it convalescent care, but there wasn't assisted living at that time. And so you want to go back, and talk to your long-term care carrier to find out, exactly what it covers. Does it cover assisted living? Does it cover home care? What's the elimination period or the deductible period? And so you need to know all that, and you don't want to be, again, in this crisis mode and having your kids pull this file out saying, yeah, mom or dad have this policy, but we have no clue what it covers. And so it's real important that you do this at this stage. And the other thing that people do is we talk about getting your ducks in a row. I would say, many people say, I'm going to stay at home, I'm just going to hire home care, which is fine. And there are some home healthcare companies, and you can interview them now, and they create a little file on you, so they get to know who you are and your dog's name and your likes and your dislikes, and so they can build that little file. So if and when that time comes, you need a home care, you're not opening up the phone book and saying, oh my God, I got to find a home care company. You've already done that research and they already know a little bit about you. So it's a very smart thing to do to pre-plan.
I think that's extremely important.
The other thing, I know, Ed, I'm sure you agree with this, is that, like my wife and I, we have this thing called a death binder. And, so we have everything all nice and tight in a little binder. And so should anything ever happen to one of us, the other one knows where, who to call and the passwords of the computer and, all of our family and the phone numbers and all that. So it's a nice, easy, clean thing. Obviously you want to keep it in a secure location. But it's important to have all, all your documents and all that together, because, I could go on a bike ride and, hit my head on a bike ride, and then my wife's gonna be like, oh my God, who's our attorney? And so you gotta have all that stuff nailed down.
True.
Well, Ed, thank you very much. You've shared some great information. I'm taking a lot of notes, and very, very helpful. And I think you provided very concise and easy for us to understand. So we really appreciate your time, Ed. And so if you all, please reach out to myself or to Ed if you have any further questions. We're here for you. Yes, Amy?
I'm sorry, may I ask one more? And this is maybe a little off the wall, but do you have any advice for, I get the part about 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. If you have a relative in your family or friend who has not paid attention to that, do you have any thoughts on, how a family member can help out with somebody who's refusing to
Yes,
anything or recognize, how bad the situation is?
yes, and being an independent third party, it's sometimes it's good to bring me in, and because there's things that I can say, and because I've been doing this for so long, there's ways that I can talk to somebody about their concerns. But I can completely relate. My mom didn't want to move anywhere, and even though this is what I do, I couldn't get my mom to move anywhere, even though I knew it was the right answer for her. My mom refused to move anywhere, so I understand that. But sometimes it's helpful to have an independent third party come in and sit down with everybody. And I'm pretty laid back, so it's just a very harmless, healthy conversation that I have with people. And sometimes it's not necessarily like I guess I wish my job would be really easy if everyone I talk to have their bags packed and they're all ready to move, but the reality is that they're not. And so it's usually a process. And so, it's just, you got to kind of plant a seed and, kind of go from there. And then maybe it's, scheduling, going and have lunch at some place and checking that out very casually, or maybe there's a concert or an event that someone could attend. So, there's ways to kind of work through that. Just call me.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I provide this very personal service, so I like to meet with people on their own turf, and so I usually go to people, I meet with them in their own homes, and so I can, it's people feel more comfortable in their home, but I'm able to understand, someone's lifestyle. And I went to a house yesterday, and I had to walk through the garage because they had so much stuff in their home. And so, there's things you pick up as you go to someone's home and understand who they are. The other
Bruce.
thing I get, is like, should I sell, or should I stay in my home while it's being sold and then move somewhere? And that's the last thing you probably want to do, the way the real estate market is. And you want to be able to sell your home at top dollar. And if someone has to show your home and you want to keep your home in pristine condition, you don't want realtors coming through there and all of a sudden calling you and saying, we're by your front door, we want to come in and show your home, and you have walkers and CPAP machines and medicine everywhere. So you want to, it's better if you can afford it to move and then put your place on the market. But there are times, there are places that have waiting lists that you're going to have to work through as well. Anything?
Bruce?
Yes,
Oh, this is Bernadette. Can you hear me?
of course.
Oh, my goodness. Wonderful. Well, hi, Ed. It's Bernadette LaPaglia, community liaison at Hodges at the Memorial Gardens. And I just want to commend you for including pre-need in your prospectus. That is a first.
Well, we try to be comprehensive.
Well, I mean, I was just totally impressed because time and time again, we encounter this as such an unfortunate impasse, and it can send family members into division at a most inopportune time because of the heightened emotions. And if the document has been executed and is in place, it just makes a world of difference. So again, bravo you. And Bruce, you're always comprehensive. So bravo you too. Thank you. I really enjoyed this. I learned a lot.
Very welcome. We've been working with the Hodges family for 30 years, and I know that he was an enormous contributor to the university. So thank you to the family as well.
I will share that with Thelma, who will be 95 in August.
That's
So
send
we'll
my regards. And I used to work with her son as well. I can't remember his first name.
Probably Leslie, Earl's grandnephew, Leslie King.
So thank you for your comment. And Bruce, anything final to wrap up?
I think we're great. So I appreciate everybody's time, and reach out to us if you need anything else. And Ed, again, thank you very much. And you're great. Great to see you.
Always my pleasure. Take care, everybody. Be well.
God bless.